Northwest Music, presented by the Cumberland Hotel. We have live music Wednesdays and Saturday nights with award-winning musicians and a menu offering everything from burgers to ribs, wings, and fish and chips.
Welcome to Northwest Music. We're coming to you from Shaw TV Studios in Campbell River. I'm your co-host, Mary Ruth Harris, and joining me is my other co-host, Doug Cox, and our very special guest, Jim Burns.
It's us. I woke up this morning, it was drizzling rain. Round the curve come a passenger train. Heard somebody yodel and a hobo moan. Jimmy's dead, it's been a long time gone. It's been a long time gone. A long time gone. If you want to get to heaven, got the D-I-E. Put on your coat, T-I-E. Want to get a rabbit out the L-O-G. You got to make a commotion like a D-O-G, like a D-O-G. D-O-G. I got a good woman, what's the matter with me? What makes me want to love every woman I see? Trifling when I met her, will a trifle again. Every woman she sees is like the place I came in, the place I came in. Place I came in. Got my name printed on my shirt. I ain't no ordinary dude. I don't have to work. I don't have to work. I don't have to work. Take me down south, huh? I woke up this morning, it was drizzling rain. Round the curve, it come a passenger train. I heard somebody yodel and a hobo moan. Jimmy's dead, he's been a long time gone. 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 A long time gone. It's been a long time gone. It's been a long time gone.
Well, that was spectacular.
I don't know about that.
So I have a question. What is your earliest memory for a song that you went, oh, that's what I'm going to do. That's where I'm going to live?
Actually, beyond that, my earliest memory in my life, we moved out of that house when I was 3 years old. But I remember it was on 4400 block of Penrose in St. Louis, Missouri. And my dad was coming in the door from work, and I was running around in a circle. On the radio was Roy Acuff singing the Wabash Cannonball.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know if I decided then that that's what I was going to do for a living, but that really, literally is one of my first two memories in my life.
Wow.
So, there you go.
That's extraordinary. What's your favorite thing about music?
Well, I think there are so many things. Favorite is a crazy word, but you know, the thing I really love so much about being a musician and doing what I do is that there's no end in sight.
Right.
You dig? I mean, it's like there's never that point where I think, well, I've done and I'm the best I can be. No, there's always that thing in your head. It's just over yonder that you want to you want to discover and learn to play, and there's no end in sight. It's just like this, open horizon that goes on forever, and that's one of the things that I really love about music.
Now, do you like playing by yourself, or do you like playing in ensembles or with musicians? Picking up, like, what's the thing that draws you the most?
They all have their their place, and sometimes I just love to stand out in the field and sing. Just singing is something that is a gift I was sort of given, and I love to practice it. But and I worked for years. I worked as a solo artist, which is great because you're not, you have low overhead, for example. But there's something about the camaraderie of playing music with friends, with people that you know well, and that you kind of love them, and there's a great, because it becomes more than the sum of its parts.
Right.
There's Doug, for example, here playing some great stuff, and I'm playing it, but it becomes, it adds up, and it goes like that, as opposed to just being, it's not linear,
Right.
It opens up. So playing, and I've had horn bands, with backup singers. We've had 12 people on stage, and that's fantastic. And also it's great when you're just all by yourself and playing. Once again, the great things about music is it really is a pain reliever. When I had the accident where I lost my legs in the hospital, and I still to this day get these phantom pains. It's been 45 years, but I still have these pains But if you get fully involved in singing a song, I mean, you can't not just humming or doing this and that, but when you're fully involved, the pain goes away. I mean, it literally does. Yeah. And it was something I really discovered in those early days of coming back to normalcy from the accident and learning how to live with disability and this and that. It'd be those times when I just didn't know what I was going to do, and I could pick up my guitar and just put my head back and howl at the moon, and I felt better.
Jim, you do a lot of work with amputees, don't you?
Yeah, a fair amount. When I'll hear the people. Well, I know people at GF Strong and in different places, and then the fellow that I work with, my prosthetist, he'll tell me when a new amputee has come in, or he'll read in the paper that somebody had an accident, and I like to go and visit them at the hospital, and just because when it happens, boy, you have no idea. I mean, it's something you don't ever imagine that happening to you.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I just like to go in and say, it's not the end. There's a whole world ahead of you. I mean, this is 45 years ago is when I lost my legs out here on the Island Highway. Mm-hmm. And but it has been. I've had a great life. It ain't over.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I like to, at least give people a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
And what they do with that information is up to them. But I do feel that it's good to deliver the news that it ain't all bad.
Yeah, that's great. So you grew up in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And were your folks musical, or?
Well, my mother loved to sing. I mean, and that was one of the things that we got a piano in the house. I mean, they wanted us to have the things that they didn't have. Both my folks came up pretty poor, the Depression, all that stuff. I'm not going to get into that, but they really loved to. My mother loved to sing, and she would, sort of sometimes under her breath. And she and her sisters, she had a couple of sisters, and we would go over, and there was a player piano, and they would sing Andrew's Sisters stuff and all that,
right,
right. And my grandmother, my mom's mother. She had a really hard life. I'm not going to get. I mean, she really did have a hard life. But her greatest, she was never able to attend in person. But her greatest thrill, with these 10 kids, and her husband had died, and blah blah blah, and health, and she would listen to the Metropolitan Opera on Saturday afternoon on the radio.
Wow,
that was her greatest joy. That's what kept her going.
Was there a lot of segregation around when you?
Oh,
when you
yeah.
were a kid?
I mean, St. Louis is still one of the most segregated places on the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild. It's funny. Chuck Berry just passed away, right? Now, I met Chuck when I was about 10 years old because he lived about 6 blocks from me, and you would see him driving. When he was a celebrity, and we were 10, 11-year-old kids, and he would drive by in his Cadillac, and we
nice.
And sometimes he would stop and regale us, and sometimes he was a very thorny guy and told us, get out. But but you know what was so amazing, really, in a way, about Chuck was that here was a 30-year-old black man when he first put out that, you know, Maybelline in '55. Well, he was 28 years old. Say that chronicled the lives of white teenagers.
Yeah.
You know, it's really crazy in this segregated place. This, you know, 30-year-old African American who like invented what it was to be a white teenager in the 50s, you know, those songs, School Days and all that kind of stuff. He just had it now. It's amazing. I mean, his you know, his guitar and his all that stuff, but his lyrics and the fact that he was able to do that. I mean, to transcend all that, you know, segregation and the racism that was inherent in everything that happened, and it was. I think it's something that was a great power that he had. You know?
Have you heard the new single?
I have. Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
It just sounds like good old Chuck Berry.
Right. Yeah. And
So
you know, I think Billy Peak is playing a lot of that guitar.
Oh,
on
okay.
there, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
So were you exposed to black music then when you
Oh
were a
yeah,
kid?
I mean, could be on the radio. I mean, one end of the dial was Patti Page, and you know, but on the other end of the dial, you know, was nothing but rhythm and blues and jazz stuff. And on Sundays, they would have live broadcasts, you know, like from the Haynes Miracle Temple at 9th and Pennsylvania in East St. Louis. And man, these guys, you know, they would go on and on. These shows would go on for a long time, and they would, you know, like, we'd like to thank Sister Williams for being on, blah, blah. But then they would get to singing and preaching, and man, oh man. Yeah, it was, and on my way to school, you would, you know, I would take the bus to go to the doctor or to school or any place, and you would go by the Monaco Lounge where there's a picture of Albert King on the front. You know, that you would go, there were all these places that you would just pass, and Joe's Records at the corner of Page and Kings Highway. I'd get off the bus there and go into that place, and it was just like, wow, another world, you know. Yeah. We were very, the exposure, I mean, that's a lot of, you know, the music that I really got into was because of that exposure that I had.
Did you get to see people live as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a bowling alley in our neighborhood, the Imperial Lanes, and they had a Club Imperial that was upstairs, and they would have teen nights and stuff. And the house band was Ike and Tina Turner.
Wow.
The first time I saw Albert King, for example, you know, he didn't become an international star until he made that record in '66, you know, Born Under a Bad Sign for Stax. But he was living in St. Louis, and he was a heavy equipment operator and drove a bulldozer. That's why his nickname, the Velvet, you know, the bulldozer, because that's what he did. He operated heavy equipment on construction and played on weekends. First time I saw him was at a birthday party put on by the Five Aces Social Club.
Wow.
At the United Auto Workers Hall on the Goodfellow and Natural Bridge, you know. And yeah, there was so much of that stuff. I mean, street performers. You'd go downtown to shop at the department store, and there'd be, you know, a guy outside and, you know, and playing blues guitar.
Yeah. They didn't need a license back then, did they? They could just play.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, there was a great exposure to that. And
So,
I mean, and all other sorts of music, too. I mean, the story I like to tell is when I was, if you can believe it, I was a boy soprano at one time. Well, you know, your voice changes as part of it.
You mean the singer, you don't mean the mafia part.
But as a kid, you know, I sang in the church choir, and we did this one Christmas. We did an interfaith, you know, this interfaith choir thing, the big Christmas music thing. And we sang some of this Gregorian chant. It was beautiful music, you know, 8th and 9th century plain song, and just gorgeous stuff, you know. Our Lady of Mount Carmel, guess what religion we were. Then there was a Lutheran choir, and there was an Episcopalian or Anglican choir, and there was the Greater Bethlehem Baptist Church choir under the direction of the Reverend Cleophas Robinson. And we got to the end of that thing, and all the music was great. The whole night was, and my mom and dad asked me, "What do you think? How was the night?" And I said, "Well, all the music was great, but you know, their God is still alive." You know, I'm talking about Cleophas Robinson's choir, you know, and so yeah, that was St. Louis was a great, you know, so many people came out of there, like that I mentioned, you know, Chuck Berry, Ike and Tina, Albert King, Miles Davis. You know, you can go on and on with the people.
And you were surrounded by country and bluegrass at the same time, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to spend summers I would go down to Kentucky. My dad had a friend, Roland Gaines, who he had worked with, and Roland had to go back when his brother died to help his mother, and they had, some land up the holler, which really means something down there. Oh,
Yeah.
they lived up the holler, and we would go down there, and Roland had been a.
So what does that mean?
Well, it's
Up the
like it's a holler. It's like what you would kind of a valley,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
a hollow, from the like they did in the little places down there. That's what they call them, But Roland had gone to St. Louis really after the war to sing on radio. He had a beautiful. His first guitar I ever played was his. He had a 1945 D18 that he got when he got out of the Marine Corps after the war. And God, I mean, that was. I've never played a guitar so good since then, But Roland had, like I say, he had to move back to the country, and it was surrounded down there by, the real deal bluegrass stuff, and which I loved it,
Right.
The harmony singing, that tight harmony, and so much of it. People know, the confluence really of Irish, Scots Irish music and black music in the South is what the bluegrass stuff. Some of the same tunes, they'll sing them in particularly the hymns. They'll sing them in the Baptist church, whether it's a white Baptist church or a black Baptist church. That music is still it's just right there.
Yeah. So you moved to Canada.
I came back from Vietnam. I got drafted. I would not have joined the Army, but I thought, from an immigrant family, you want to do the right thing. And when you're that young, you don't quite know what the right thing is. And I came back, and I really was a very disillusioned young man. And so I came up here, and I went back to the States, and I came back up here, and I was just kicking around here and there and everywhere. And I lived in Toronto for a while. And I went back to the States, and then I got a letter from a guy who I knew in Vietnam in the Army, and he was living on Vancouver Island. He was living out in Ucluelet.
Oh, okay.
And there was an entire cadre of Vietnam basket cases
Right.
living out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that I had gone out to visit him, and I came to Vancouver Island, and I felt I loved the place. I lived in Ucluelet for almost a year, and kind of got my health back and my head back, and then I moved out of there, and we was living around the Victoria area, and then I was living in Arrington, just outside of Parksville there, when I had the accident. Ended up in the hospital in Nanaimo for a long time, back and forth. When I started to learn to walk again, I went back to the States, and it wasn't home anymore. This was home, and I've been here, off and on. I first came here in 1970. And a couple of times went back to the States, but never, But I'm full time. This is home.
Right.
There's
And
always. I still go back. I'm a dual citizen. Blah blah blah. But this is home.
You must have missed the culture and the food and.
Oh
all
yeah,
that stuff,
exactly. It's the culture. The musical culture, and the barbecue, and there is stuff. But it's as I say, it's a great place to be from.
Yeah,
and a great place to stay from.
Now, Mary Ruth and I were talking before the show, and she knew you as an actor because she grew up in Ontario before
So
she knew you
let's
as a musician.
actually
Right?
hold that conversation until after you guys play another song.
Okay.
All right.
Too much talk?
Too much talk. Let's hear some music.
All right.
All right.
This is one of your tunes.
Yeah, this is a little blues tune that I wrote sort of as a paean to T-Bone Walker and Ed Holt. Like the fishes swim in the ocean, the stars just fill the sky. Baby, I got a solid notion about what's going on with you and I. Listen to me, baby. Hear every word that I say. Somebody else might love you, baby. They'll never love you this way. Let's start a fire. Baby, we got a spark. I got this aching desire. I won't be right next to you in the dark. Listen to me, baby. Woman, hear every word that I say. Somebody else might love you, baby. They'll never love you this way. Play it for me, baby. Like making love in the parlor or down in Lover's Lane. I like making love in the wee hours of the morning, Lord, when it's pouring down rain. Listen to me, baby. Hear every word that I say. Somebody else might love you, baby. They'll never love you this way. Oh, yeah,
Yeah. So do you do a lot of writing?
It comes in spurts, yeah. I mean, sometimes it kind of comes through me. Sometimes it's not like I'm writing it. It's just something that, here it comes, and then I'll go for long periods of time without writing anything. I love to interpret other people's music as well. But we've just done a new recording with Steve Dawson producing again, and so I wrote some stuff for that. You know, it's funny. Some of it are tunes that I wrote on the last album when we did St. Louis Times. I did a song that I wrote 34 years ago.
Wow, that's great.
And it just kind of been sitting around, but it's a song called I Need a Change. And basically I wrote it about 3 months before I met my wife. And I guess that was the change that I was waiting for, you know. But then after all this time, I went back and we finally recorded it. And so, yeah, I try to, I also do some prose writing as well.
Oh, okay.
So I'm putting together a memoir, sort of, which is half true and half, you know, fantasy biography sort of thing.
Nice.
There's a great book by Charles Mingus, Beneath the Underdog, where some of it's obviously true and some of it is like, oh man, it's obviously not. But that's kind of like, you know, we all kind of live in our imaginations. So,
Yeah.
On Dunsmuir Avenue in Cumberland is the Cumberland Hotel, and every Wednesday night is an acoustic night with award-winning musicians Cox, Bachman, and Lee. A 5-ounce burger and any pint. Pool tables, darts, food, and music. Now back to Northwest Music with Mary Ruth Harris and Doug Cox.
We are in the Shaw TV studios in Campbell River. I'm the co-host, Mary Ruth Harris, along with Doug Cox. And our special guest in studio today is Jim Burns. And before the break, we were talking about a new album.
That's right.
I'm dating myself, album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still, yeah.
Well, the cool thing about this record, I of course am friends with Steve and been following you on Facebook. And you guys recorded old school, where you just
completely
set
old
up
school.
No headphones.
No headphones.
Recorded digital
live
audio,
off the floor.
analog?
You know, yeah, and
Wow.
on tape.
That's fantastic.
And yeah, well, you know, we were talking.
And
You listen to a Ray
and
Charles.
expensive.
Well, yeah, you listen to a Ray Charles record from 1950, 50s or something, and it sounds better than to me. You know,
I agree.
Then
I
you know,
agree.
and so we went back to doing that, you know, and found all these pictures. I mean, when you listen to those old, like those Duke Ellington and the big bands. These were 18 guys in one room with one microphone hanging from the ceiling, and they figured out how to put themselves. This is a louder instrument, so you're here. And part of the magic of doing the record was also, Steve is brilliant, but Sheldon Zaharko, the engineer, just the guy is a Svengali with this stuff. We would stop something, and he would come and he would move the microphone 2 inches.
So did you only use one mic? Or did you use...
Oh no, we had there were mics around the room, and a few baffles and a couple of blankets, but for the most part, we were all facing each other, all just right there playing as if we were playing music.
Nice, yeah, imagine that.
Because so much stuff is manufactured these days, and you can hear it. I can listen to, and these guys, there's some guy in his bedroom somewhere with a drum machine, and then they put on another track from somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
But no, we all sat together and played music, and part of the other secret is to have really great players.
Yeah,
which
nice.
we did. Yeah.
So you were happy with the results?
Oh, we haven't mixed it yet, and I haven't. It's been it's only a week now a week ago that we finished, and so we just kind of. But I think in my mind, the few things I went back to hear one day to hear a bit of stuff, and I think it's the best thing that we've done.
Oh, that's great.
I feel that
because you've made some really great records with Steve.
Well, yeah, thank you, but I really think this one's going to be the best one.
Nice. Another thing you had a cook.
Oh yeah, Kevin Mooney, my good friend Kevin. He's one of my oldest friends up here, and he had started cooking when he was tree planting.
Nice.
And then he was in the restaurant business. He and I were in the restaurant business together for a while. We had a Cafe Django, which was a jazz club, and we had great artists in there. But Kevin, often, he'll often come over to the house, and we'll whip up some stuff. I like to cook too, but Steve was kind enough to, for all the records that we were doing at the warehouse, we had the budget. And we had Kevin come in and cater all the meals, right?
Fantastic.
And so and like the runners and the engineers and the people who worked in the studios, oh man, because normally I'm so tired of every takeout place in this city, in the neighborhood, like no more pizza. No, we had, and the thing was really amazing. He never duplicated a meal. Every meal we had was
wonderful.
It was different.
Different.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Now, how about a song?
Yeah, how about it?
Okay.
I will go wherever you lead me, on rivers of roses or rain. Follow the signs that you lead me, the mysteries of joy and of pain. Search for light in the darkness, though I stumble through shadow and shade. Oh, if you are with me, of whom shall I be afraid? Oh, if you are with me, of whom shall I be afraid? You have lifted me up when I've fallen and driven the ghost from my door. Comforted me in my sorrow, wiped my brow when I've been sick and sore, shared in all of my triumphs, and blessed the crops that we laid. Oh, if you are with me, of whom shall I be afraid? Oh, if you are with me, of whom shall I be afraid? I have wondered at your sacrifice as I stood at the gates of dawn. Love one another, that was your advice, and that keeps me moving on. Stand at the rock together, hold fast ride out the storm. We will sing in the rain and the windy weather, and we will come to no harm as we wash in the love and forgiveness that came with the price that you paid. Oh, if you are with me, of whom shall I be afraid? Oh, if you are with me, of whom shall I be afraid? I never, 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 I don't have to be afraid. Never, 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 never be afraid. Never be afraid. Never be afraid.
You're watching Northwest Music. Thank you so much. That is absolutely fantastic. We're going to be right back with more music with Jim Burns and Doug Cox.
The Cumberland Hotel on Dunsmuir Avenue in Cumberland has live music with a different band every Saturday night. Variety is the spice of life. A half rack of ribs, 6 wings, a baked potato, and a salad. Now back to Northwest Music with Mary Ruth Harris and Doug Cox.
I'm gonna spend all my money, go home late. I'm gonna try one of everything that they put on my plate. I'm gonna flash my pearly grin all over this town. Whisper to my baby when the lights go down. I'm gonna lay down and shimmy, stand up and shout. I'm gonna show all these women what love is all about. I'm gonna sing when I'm happy, moan when I'm blue, then I'm gonna do it all over, baby, all over you. Well, I might not speak this lingo, I might not know all the rules, I might not have all the learning that some of these other boys do. But when the fire is rising, the fire get to burning real hot. Baby, this a man's got something those other boys, they just ain't got. Play it for me. Spend all my money, go home late, try one of everything that they put on my plate, flash my pearly grin all over this town, and whisper to my baby when the lights go down. I'm gonna lay down and shimmy, stand up and shout. I'm gonna show all the women what love is all about. I'm gonna sing when I'm happy, moan when I'm blue, then I'm gonna do it all over, do it all over you, baby, all over you, all over you, baby, all over you.
Oh, that is so amazing. I love that song. That just, well, that's a great song.
I wrote that when we were filming Highlander in Paris.
Oh.
And I had been out the night before, out in the tap. And I literally wrote that sitting in a cafe on the street right near Montmartre. And I wrote it on the napkin. Word for word, it just came out like that.
Well, that's an unusual blues guy sentence. I wrote that while we were filming Highlander in Paris.
I know.
That's something you hear very often.
Now, I'm glad you brought up the acting because, full confession, I am a Highlander fan. That's where I first discovered you. I knew you were an actor even before I knew you were an amazing blues musician. So, about Highlander exactly, what was it about that series that you enjoyed?
Well, you know, funny, I mean, that was a show I didn't even audition for. And, you know, you go out and you get just these auditioning, it's like going to hell, you know. It's just, they're awful. But, you know, I had done a show called Wise Guy for CBS for 3 years. And so I sort of, these guys knew this. And they were just about to start to shoot the second season of Highlander in Vancouver. And they had written this new character. And they had a couple of actors, a couple of really prominent English actors in line for this part. The part was the guy who was called Ian Dawson. Well, anyway, the deal fell apart, and this was like 3 days before they were going to shoot. And the producer said, well, that Jim Burns guy, he lives in Vancouver. And so I went and I met the producer in a bar. And we had a couple of drinks, and we got along okay. And they said, okay, they promised me 4 episodes just to sweeten the deal, so I would go to work in the next couple of days. And I said, sure, okay. And did 5 years on the show.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And,
I loved your character on
yeah,
that
well,
show.
you know,
Really
and
did.
like I say, originally it had been written as sort of and the guy was a sort of an English professorial sort of, and you know, the name Ian Dawson, I said, nah, that's not me. Let's make it Joe.
Yeah, no, it really worked.
And it became, I mean, the character I think worked because I sort of was the everyman. I sort of represented all the viewers, right? Because,
Absolutely.
you know, this secret society that knew about the existence of the Immortals, much like the fans of the show did, right?
Yeah.
And so I was sort of the stand-in for all of the fans, you know, like I was the touchstone. I was the guy that got hurt and got older and all that kind of stuff. But it was, yeah, that worked out really great. And it was, what a job. I mean, we would shoot 13 episodes in Vancouver, and to be a working actor and to be able to sleep in your own bed at night and
Amazing.
have dinner with your family. And this guy is, well, you know, like a musician, the travel and stuff, and you're away from your kids, and it's hard. But I was at that, and then we would shoot 9 episodes every year in Paris, France.
Right.
And that was murder, you know, living at somebody else's expense in Paris for 3 months every year. Yeah, brutal. I mean, I'll never have another job like that, I don't think.
How many kids do you have, Joe?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters.
Yeah. One is quite, you know, she lives in St. Louis and is well into her, I mean, I can't believe she's older than I am. And then my daughter, Kate, she's in Vancouver. Actually, she just got back from, she's in the film business as well. And she was just in Ireland producing and production designing a film in Ireland, which was great because you know, my dad's from Ireland, and so she went back and Dad, I found my way home. You know, I mean,
Nice.
she just felt immediately the. I mean, I know this. I have the same feeling when I go there or to Scotland. I have this immediate. I feel like I'm home.
Connection.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's what they're doing. And,
So how did you get into acting?
Well, I was just going to say, like, when did the click happen? Like, you were a blues musician. Like,
Yeah, you know, actually, the acting thing was really what I pursued. I majored in theater in university, and I started when I was in high school. I had this teacher mentor guy became one of the best friends in my life. He just passed away last year, but he, you know, and in high school, I mean, the National Catholic Theater Conference. I won all these awards. We did all this work. I worked professionally at Summer Stock when I was still in high school. And then I majored in, I went to Boston University. And here's a funny one. We did a production of Richard III. And Richard III was played by Paul Michael Glaser, Starsky.
Oh, yeah.
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch.
And I played Buckingham. Anyway, that's funny shit. But anyway, and then, you know, life sort of interfered, and this and that happened to me. And then I had this accident, and I couldn't get arrested as an actor. You know, I mean, I would go in, I'd audition, and well, that was good. But when do you lose the cane? What's the deal? I go, well, it's a permanent thing. And oh, well, don't call us, we'll call you. And that went on for like 15 years.
Wow.
And I auditioned for the part on Wise Guy for the CBS show Undercover Police, and it was a guy in a wheelchair. And I got the part. I signed the contract 15 years to the day that I had had my accident. So make of that what you will, just synchronicity, but that was and then that was great. I mean, we were nominated and won a Golden Globe, and we were Emmy nominated, and that was really Wise Guy was very proud of that show, the work that we did and the friends that we made, and then I did some stuff on Neon Rider, which is a Canadian production, and then the Highlander thing kind of fell into my lap, and wow, that just turned into.
No, you go sometimes to some of the sort of conferences with the
the fan
right?
conventions.
Fans.
Pretty
that
wacky.
like?
Some of them are pretty wacky. But it's wonderful. I mean, but people, they have watched these shows more than I have.
Right.
I'll tell you,
And they must get.
And they'll ask these questions like, well, when like. We were making it up, we were running out of time. The light was, we're losing the light. Do something, And so you do it, and then and these people asking you like 15 years later, well, what were you thinking? Well, I don't know. And they don't want to hear that,
Right.
they
think it was so
because I did for years. I did a lot of cartoon voices and stuff too, and for lots of different stuff. And we were the Transformers, right?
Yes.
And so I was at one of these conventions, and this is a mistake not to make. I won't make it again. They were going around, and we had asking this question and that question. There was a bunch of us there. And what was your favorite episode of the And I should have said, well, the one where everything exploded. I said, I've never really watched this show. boy, did the air come out of the room, And it was like, I didn't. I did the work, and it's like, when you go home, I want to watch myself sweeping the floor, right? It's just, not that I thought there was anything wrong with it. It was just not my,
Right.
I did the work, and I went home, and I got the paycheck, but I'll never make that mistake. Because boy, did the air come out of the room in that. Ooh.
So, Jim, you've had 2 careers at least.
Mm-hmm.
What's left?
And they're
that you,
simultaneous, though.
Yeah.
They happen
Yeah.
at the same time.
What,
Still happening
is there
at the
anything
same
that
time.
you want to do as an artist at this point in time that you haven't done?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking with Chris Gaze at Bard on the Beach, and I want to get back on stage and do something at Bard on the Beach.
Something theater.
Yeah, because really that theater is, I love it. It's my first love in a way. I still, when I go, there's just something that happens when the curtain comes up, and the light. It's magic to me. I mean, it just makes me shiver.
It is.
And I love that. Working acting in film is like a real Zen exercise. I mean, you'll have your big scene, and you will have rehearsed it, and you're ready to go, and you sit in the trailer for 4 hours while they light it,
Yes.
And then you got to go back and just maintaining that focus and that mindset to get back and do this. It's an odd thing, but the other thing is you can also say, cut, stop when you screw up. Whereas when you're on stage, man, the set can fall on your head, and all that's which it has,
just keep going.
And you got to figure some way to do it. You got to stand and deliver, and so that's something that I'm looking forward to doing. Is doing something at Bard on the Beach.
I've actually been to see Bard on the Beach over in Vancouver, and it is
I love it. Yeah,
just
I'm
magical.
A member. Yeah, it is.
Magical out there.
Yeah, it really is.
So you're watching Northwest Music. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. With me is Doug Cox and Jim Burns, and they're going to play us another tune.
There's coming a time on a great judgment morning when the Savior will welcome you home. Will you be prepared for the journey to heaven in the great ship that carries God's chosen ones home? Oh, the water is so deep on the river of Jordan, and the light shines so bright from heaven above. From heaven above, midnight is past. There's a new day is dawning, and the great ship will anchor in the harbor of love. Oh, the water's so deep on the river of Jordan, and the light shines so bright from heaven above. From heaven above, midnight is past. There's a new day is dawning in heaven on high, and the great ship will anchor in the harbor of love. The great ship will anchor in the harbor of love.
You're right. Very appropriate for Sunday. What's your favorite style of music?
Oh, you know, who was it? Duke Ellington or Louis Armstrong? One of them said there's, you know, good music and bad music. So I like the good kind. That's my favorite kind, good music.
How old were you when you wrote your first song? Do you remember?
I guess I was about 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that when you started performing out in public?
Yeah, I started, you know, doing little, at school, you know, they would have open mic sort of things, little coffee houses we would go to. But I really date my professional career back to November of 1965. I was 17, and I opened for the Byrds at St. Louis University in the field house. And it was me. I opened in the Dillards and the Byrds, and that was that's I feel, you know, my name was on the poster, and I had joined the Musicians Union, and here I am. 52 years later, still trying to make a living.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the Vancouver music scene, because it just seems to be like, what do you figure is going on over there with all the clubs closing down?
But, places are opening too. I mean, you know, everybody, I won't say the word, you know, moans and, you know, what about, you know, always closed. If you want to play, if you want to work, you can do it.
Right.
I'm sorry, you know, yeah, a lot of clubs are closing, and it's a different world. I mean, back in the day, you know, we would go into Harpo's in Victoria, and we'd play for a week, you know. We would places in Vancouver, you know, you'd set up for a week, and we would go to Edmonton for 2 weeks in these clubs, and, you know, and now they'll have these places, you know, there'll be 4 bands in one night, and these guys are lucky if they can get a beer out of it. But, you know, it's... it has changed. I mean, I don't mean to, and it'd be tough coming up, but at the same time, you know, like I said, so many people there's going, gee, I can't make a living. Well, like I said before, Albert King worked construction. You know, Slim Harpo, the great, you know, he had a trucking company. Roscoe Gordon, who wrote all those great tunes, had a dry cleaner. You know, these, you know, they didn't make their, and they're the guys whose music we're playing, and you know, and you think, oh, gee, I can't make a living. Well, neither could the guy that wrote this song. You know, and it's never been easy. But
so maybe we got a little spoiled in the.
Well, yeah. There was a time really when it was you could actually sort of, you know, make a decent wage. But now, you know, prices have gone up and the money's the same. And there are fewer and fewer, but every time a place closes, there's somebody else opens up something else somewhere, and yeah, so many guys are turning. You know, they hire a DJ instead of the 4 or 5 cranky musicians that they don't have to put up with, you know, and you know, all the sports bars now, you know, they just put up TVs and
Which they're now going to be charged for.
Yeah. That's I know. Yeah, but it has changed. I'm not trying to do. But at the same time, I feel it's like people complaining about the weather. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Do you think the pendulum will start to swing back though? To
I believe it. I believe it will. I mean, just like now, like vinyl records are coming back.
They are.
There's
even new stores opening up to accommodate.
Right. Yeah.
You see a lot of promising young players. As many as you did 20 years ago. Do you think?
Yeah. There are so many. Man, just the talent is there.
Good.
Good. And not just playing. Like playing all sorts of music. Playing. Jazz and indie stuff and singer-songwriter stuff and blues players. Yeah, there's no shortage of talent. I'll tell you that.
Now, are you seeing a lot of that new talent come up? Are you seeing it out in the clubs, or are you seeing it at the festivals like the Vancouver Island Music Fest?
The festivals right now are really they're so great. I mean that we can such a diversity. I mean, and Doug does such a fantastic job. I'm in awe of this guy really, and really the people that he brings in and of course the big headliners. But every year there's people. Man, I never heard that before.
Yeah, people talk about you did a session a few years back with Del McCurry.
Yeah.
With Aaron and Leon Bibb.
Right, yeah.
Leon Bibb, I'm sorry. A gospel session.
It was Leon and then his son. And
people still talk about that as one of the all-time
Oh, my God,
that
for me, that was, I've been on stage, and I told Del this too, that I've been on stage with Ray Charles and with Muddy Waters and with Holland, all these people. But that was the thrill of a lifetime to sing with Del McCurry and his boys.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it just filled my heart up. I'll tell you, I'll never forget that day. Because I'm working on a radio. I have a radio show on Roundhouse Radio in Vancouver, and I play blue. But there's a show called Live from Railtown, which originally Terry David Mulligan was hosting, but now Terry's moved to Vancouver Island now, and so he kind of sends in stuff now and then, but it's called Live from Railtown, and we have and I have hosted it a few times, and Corey Price, our musical director, but we bring in all sorts of people who are traveling through, or local artists, and we'll sit down and for an hour and let them play and talk about their music and where they're going to go with it, and it blows my mind how many really great people that you haven't heard of, but man. They open their mouth and what was that?
Yeah,
really. So
yeah. So you shared the stage with Helen Wolf, did you?
Yeah.
Wow, tell us about that.
Well, this was a place called the Fireworks Station in Brooklyn, Illinois, which is a suburb of East St. Louis, and it's was it Ronnie Hawkins said you got to puke twice and show them your razor before they let you in. And this is a place with a dirt floor and big aluminum tubs full of beer and. I happened to meet I met some of the guys, and I got to get up on stage with Wolf and play some guitar. I played on stage with Waylon Jennings one time, same sort of thing. I played, I met Muddy Waters when I was 15 and played with him a few times when he was both in St. Louis and in North Vancouver at the old roller rink. It was a great show.
Was the Wolf? Was he nice to you?
He was great to me.
Were you afraid of him, or
no? I mean, when the first time we went to a place called Slick's Lakeside Club in Eagle Park, Illinois. This was another suburb of East St. Louis, a rough joint too. But we gone in there, and it was me and my buddy. We would, we were fearless. We would go and realize, we were the only white people in a 5-mile radius. But walked in, and tried, and we were underage. 15 years old, and got into this, But so we got, and I found a place in the corner, and all of a sudden in walks Otis Spann, and Muddy. It's like, oh my God. And Muddy kind of looked on, saw us sitting in the corner, and started laughing, and came over and said to me, he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Waters, I just love your records, and I've worn them out, and blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Well, thank you for coming." And he called the guy, he says, bought these bars Coca-Cola. He bought us a Coca-Cola. And then later, 3 years later, I was going to school in Boston, and he was going to be appearing at Club 47 over in Cambridge, Mass. And so I told somebody, "Oh yeah, Muddy, I know Muddy." "Yeah, sure you do." And so we went to the club, and we got there early and sat down. And when they came in, and Muddy, "Jim, what are you?" And I was.
That's awesome.
I was king of the hill for about 10 minutes.
do
But,
you have
yeah.
do you have a favorite blues singer?
Oh,
Or do you-
well, Bobby Blue Bland.
Bobby Blue
Yeah,
Bland.
who I got to see a number of times at in East St. Louis, the place called the Cosmopolitan Hall, which is also where Chuck Berry got his start. The 18th and Bond Avenue in East St. Louis, and I love. There's so many great ones. I mean, you say that once again, that word favorite. It's
a hard one.
Impossible, It really is impossible. So many people influenced me, and so many singers that I love, and just when they put their heart and soul into it, man, you can feel it, and that's what I want to do. I want to feel it. I don't want to just hear it. I want to feel it.
Do you find that your voice is changing
All right.
now as you get older?
Well, yeah, I don't have that boy soprano thing anymore that I once had, but I honestly feel that I'm singing better than I ever have in my life. At this age, I really feel strongly about that, and partly it's because like Thelonious Monk's got that list of things about playing music, and one of them he says it's not always what you do play, it's what you don't play.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you've also grown into your legacy, you could say, or your music, right? Like I've noticed the last few records you've made.
Yeah.
It's like the real deal, and I think that just is something that as we get older you start to understand a little bit more what you're singing about.
Exactly. I
all
mean,
that kind of stuff.
And that that's one thing I feel. I've never had a job. I've got a career.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
and never really had hit records of this, but so many of those guys that had hit records,
You never hear from again.
you never hear from again. They're gone, and it's
Yeah.
something And so, but I have maintained, somehow or another, I've managed to for 52 years. I've been doing this professionally, and
it's a career you can hear and feel in your soul.
Yeah. I mean, it's once again, it's that thing of like if you do something you love, well, you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Speaking of something you love, how about another song to take us out? Because I'm afraid we are out of time.
This, oddly enough, is a country and western number from Buck Owens.
Together again, my tears have stopped falling. The long, lonely nights are now at an end. The key to my heart you hold in your hand, and nothing else matters. We're together again. Together again, the gray skies are gone. You're back in my arms, right where you belong. The love that I knew is living again, and nothing else matters. We're together again. No, nothing else matters. We're together again.
You've been watching Northwest Music. I'd like to thank our special guest, Mr. Jim Burns, for joining us today, and my co-host, Mr. Doug Cox, for some amazing music. Thank you so much for watching. We've been coming to you from Shaw TV Studios in Campbell River. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. We'll see you next time.
Northwest Music, presented by the Cumberland Hotel, located on Dunsmuir Avenue in Cumberland. They have live music every Wednesday and Saturday, pool tables, darts, and a menu with everything from chicken to burgers to fish and chips to ribs and wings. Thank you for watching Northwest Music.